everybody. Welcome to the Topics at 12 with Ruben Gonzalez on restaurant recovery after COVID-19. Thank you to our sponsor, Susan Reagan with the RCC Small Business Center and the Reidsville Chamber of Commerce, Team Reidsville, and the Rockingham County Small Business Office. We are really excited to be here, and we are thankful to have Roy Sawyers with Rockingham Update, who produces these for us, and they will be available for viewing after today. So be on the lookout for social media and other areas to view. Just as always, be sure to keep your mics muted, and if you have questions, you can send them to us in the chat box. And if you're viewing this later, Ruben's contact information will be located at the end, and you are welcome to reach out to him for further questions. So we're going to get started today with a technology tip. So thank you, Roy Sawyers with Rockingham Update, for bringing us this tip.
Thank you, Diane. If you're like us and you're using Zoom for more than once or twice a week, I'm going to give you 3 quick keyboard shortcuts that will help you save a ton of time. I is for invite. Press Command and I on Mac OS or Alternate and I on a Windows system to jump to the invite window. This is where you can grab the link to the meeting or send invitations to others via email. M is for mute. Command plus Control plus M on a Mac operating system or Alternate and M on Windows. This is going to be very good when you're the host and you need to mute everybody at one time, okay? And S is for share. On Mac OS, you press Command plus Shift plus S or Alternate plus Shift plus S on Windows systems to share your screen. I hope that you find today's technology tip helpful. Diane?
Thank you, Roy. I took notes. Those are going to be very helpful to me, as you know, especially the link one. I feel like I'm always needing to share the link after we're in it. So that is wonderful. Well, we're going to get right on with our presentation. We have Ruben Gonzalez, who I understand has lots of experience with restaurants, and he's going to talk to us about restaurant recovery after COVID. So Ruben, take it away.
All right, appreciate it, Diane and members of the chamber and Susan with the Rockingham County Community College. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about restaurant recovery today. Obviously, and we were just talking about this, if you were in the restaurant business right now, you probably wouldn't be watching this because you're probably serving lunch or trying to serve lunch, or the COVID-19 case, probably delivering lunch. So yeah, restaurants have a particularly difficult time now. So we wanted to present a little something on things to think about, things to prepare for during the recovery and even especially after the recovery ends. So that's kind of the topics we're going to be handling today. As Diane mentioned, I have a lot of restaurant experience. I was in the restaurant business for many years. My family actually was in the restaurant business as well. Fortunately, none of us had ever had to go through a pandemic. So thank God for that. My latest experience, I was director of business development for the city of Winston-Salem, and I administered the city's downtown restaurant roll loan program. And that program was able to finance about 15 different restaurants that opened in our downtown area in the late 1900s and early 2002, 2003, around there. And it's quite a few restaurants. And if you've been to downtown Winston-Salem lately, a lot of those restaurants I work with, personally to get them open. In fact, the first real new business to ever open in our downtown revitalization efforts was a restaurant. It's called Sweet Potatoes. It's in a little bit different location on Trade Street today than it was a few years ago. But yeah, it was the first new business to open in our center downtown area in probably about 40 years. And it created a big impact downtown, and the subsequent restaurants that opened after that also created a pretty big impact. And those restaurants, of course, opened up the doors and created a vitality that other types of businesses could feel and look forward to participating in. And now we have a completely, what I would say is a completely revitalized, downtown area. Not all the restaurants that started back 20 years ago are still open. Some of those restaurants have changed hands. Other restaurants didn't quite make it for a variety of reasons. And we never know what reason a restaurant doesn't make it. No, we just know that they didn't make it. Sometimes it's internal management. Sometimes the duo that are running the restaurant, they have a falling out and they can't run the restaurant anymore. It's not always because of a lack of business. It's not always because the restaurant didn't know what it was doing. There's various reasons why businesses in general and restaurants, would not actually make it. So unfortunately now we have the pandemic. So we can add another reason for business troubles. We can add another reason to the stack. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So restaurants right now are probably in one of these three categories. The first category is, are you still open? We could talk a little bit about that. And there's a lot of restaurants out there that are still pitching away. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the reasons why they're still open, why they've been able to remain open. And I think you've seen examples of this even after immediately a lot of businesses closing back in March and April. And many restaurants were able to continue operations. But there were operations that changed a little bit. Some of them changed quite significantly. So we're going to talk a little about those. I also want to spend a little time talking about if you closed, if your restaurant was open, but you closed due to the pandemic. Now what are you faced with, especially if you want to get open? I'm working with a group right now that are trying to get open. They're going through several steps here. They're going to have to work through before they can get open. And we're going to talk about some of that today as well. And are you new? Are you new to the restaurant field, even during this pandemic? And I'm actually working with a couple of groups that are brand new. They're under construction right now. I'm working with a couple of restaurants that have kind of extended services, if you will. They're a combination microbrewery and restaurant. And those places are under construction as we speak. I work with a program that you can ask me questions about at the end today, or you can send me an email. I will give out my email address towards the end of the session today. And you can ask me questions about that loan funding program I currently work with. I have 2 projects I'm working with right now. They're under construction. I have another project that's under what I would say renovation more than construction in Lexington. And they're moving ahead, trying to get a brand new restaurant open, even under the conditions that we find ourselves with the pandemic. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. Are you new to the field? I'm not sure who's in the audience right now, so hopefully you're in one of the 3. If not, let me know. I can't think of another one you might be in. All right, so if you want to stay open and you are open, I'm sure you've pivoted, changed things, looked at your operation and realized what you needed to pivot to stay open. So there's some things out there you probably figured out right away. For instance, delivery. Yeah, most definitely. I mean, most of your businesses that are still open and have been doing delivery service or some kind of drive-through, some kind of curbside pickup. If you were already doing that type of thing, then this pivoting, this transition probably became a lot easier for you. If not, hopefully you were able to make this pivot, make these changes you needed to take advantage of these new realities of being in the restaurant business. If you're currently open and you haven't taken advantage of any of these, well, you need to bring those online somehow. And I know the business that rearranged all its parking so they can put a to-go window in. So, I mean, there's things you could do. So pivoting is what like we say to talk about. So if you want to stay open, then you really got to take some measures to really make that happen. So first bullet here is, you should be streamlining your menu. Things aren't like it was before, where you might have had a menu of a couple of 100 items, but you should be looking at ways to streamline that menu for a lot of reasons. I think you can think about this. So one thing, you'd have less need for large scale inventory if you streamlined your menu a little bit. You might have had things on your menu that you've been thinking about dropping for a long time, just hadn't got around to it. But now's a good time, get around to it. So when I was in the restaurant business, we always had, several items on the menu that looked like it didn't sell, but we're either too stubborn to get rid of them or too lazy to get rid of them. But yeah, now's a good time. If you have time, you need to look at that menu and streamline it, get it down to the best things that you do, and also the most convenient things that you do. We ordered something not too long ago, and it certainly wasn't the quality you usually get when you're at the store itself. When you're at the shop itself and you're sitting there at the dining room table and the food comes right out of the kitchen, that's a certain quality right there. But when you order the same thing and it comes in a styrofoam box, and after 20 minutes, you finally get around to opening it up, many times that quality has deteriorated quite a bit. So in streamlining your menu, make sure you keep the things on the menu that you know are going to hold up as far as quality goes, because you still have a reputation. You still have a reputation to maintain in your marketplace. You don't want to let the COVID virus ruin your reputation. There's already enough out there that's going to make maintaining your reputation hard enough as it is. So you don't want to add to it by letting the quality of your menu slip at this point in time. So if you are open, look at your menu very critically. Make sure the things that you're going to be serving at the curb or through a takeout window or through a delivery, make sure those things are going to maintain their quality, because you don't want to hurt your reputation as a fine option for good food. And that can happen very quickly. So we don't have to talk about unsatisfied customers and if they don't find something that they like, or if they have a bad experience, how quickly that message can spread in the community. So we want to make sure you're maintaining the quality of your menu. So along with that, you need to look at your inventory. And this is really serious too. Hopefully we have enough time as we go through here. We can talk a little bit about financing and cash flow. But if you can reduce your inventory, you can certainly reduce your cash flow out. So since sales are off and cash coming in is going to be reduced, you want to make sure you're looking at your inventory, making sure your inventory is not making sure your cash flow, is not tied up in your inventory. And again, if you're streamlining your menu, that should have an effect on streamlining your inventory as well. So take a real good look at that. So if you're still open, make sure your inventory is matching your new menu, and make sure you're aware of your menu costs. A lot of times inventory comes in, we sign off on it, and we put the stuff in the cooler. Make sure you're checking pricing very quickly. Competitive pricing now, competitive purchasing on your part is going to be more valuable than ever. I remember back in the business when I was doing it, somebody would come in with a price for cheese. I'd search it around. I'd shop it around and see if I can get that cheese at a different price. And certain restaurants, the cost of a particular product, they can vary greatly. So you always want to make sure you're purchasing at a very fair rate. And don't forget that key management point is to make sure you're purchasing at a good price. So look at your inventory. Could save you money there. Reorganize staff. Some of the same things as inventory. So you don't want to have a lot of staff on hand. If you are fortunate enough to get one of those PPP loans, the Payroll Protection Program loans, maybe you're able to hold on to your staff for a while. But eventually, if you have to let staff go, don't be shy about that. A couple of businesses I work with, instead of letting wholesale staff go, they were able to work something out where they just cut all the staff hours back. So the hurt, as we say, was spread among several staff members, as opposed to one or two staff members losing their jobs completely. But however you work it, take a look at your staff right now, making sure you only have the necessary people on hand that you really need. If business is off, then chances are you're not going to need as much staff as you needed before the pandemic. So you really need to look at that. Make sure your staff is organized and make sure your staff is needed for what your operation currently looks like. How about this next one? If you haven't had a website, you need one. You need to put one together as soon as possible. If you have one, make sure people can order online. I know a lot of websites are just what we call informational. People just go there to find out information, look at pretty pictures and so forth and so on. But you need to take it a step further and make sure that people can order online. There's a lot of very good applications out there that open up the online purchasing value. And of course, the PayPal, the old standard form one is still out there, but Square has a paying system and several other online paying systems you can implement, put into your computer, put onto your website. So yeah, I would definitely check on that now. So again, if you have a website, make sure people can order online. If you don't have a website yet, make sure you start a website, because you're going to need that ordering. So one of the best things you can do as you set up a website is look at what other restaurants are doing. You know, how do they have their website set up? You know, what do their online menus look like? Even what do their online pricing look like? You can get a lot of valuable information, but doing some deep research into what your competitors are doing out there in your marketplace. Look at what they're doing, and you can try to emulate, you know, many of the things that they're doing. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, as we say. You can just look at what's already out there, what appears to be already working, and implement that on your own website. Again, if you're streamlining your menu, you have an opportunity now on your website to point out some of your more quality plates or offerings that you have, and you should be encouraged to add that stuff to your website. You know, this is an opportunity here. We can go back to the top. It's an opportunity to streamline your menu and make it more useful, functional, and profitable. An opportunity to look at your inventory, so you're not carrying a lot of dead inventory and you're not going to have a lot of waste. Makes it more profitable because you can design staff to meet your current needs. So there are opportunities even in the pandemic here if you're running a restaurant right now, and you should be taking a look at all these, including the opportunity to sell online through a website or through another platform. That includes curbside pickup now. So in the old days, of course, we had the little car hops, right? People come out and roller skates and skate up to your window and get something to eat. So curbside pickup, not quite like that, but yeah, why not? Of course, you'd have to designate some areas, and I've seen this. We went to a really pretty good restaurant not too long ago to pick up food, and this particular restaurant in town also had in dining room dining, but they also had a large patio. So there was a significant number of people there. In fact, their little parking lot was full. But I noticed up front in the parking lot, closest to the door, there was about 3 or 4 spaces. Man, listen, I said to my wife, let's go get one of those spaces quick before somebody else does. And of course, we were there for a pickup order. And as we pulled up to the door, they were all reserved for a curbside pickup. So, you know, they had already pivoted many of their menu items to curbside pickup. And very convenient. They came right out to the door. Our order had already been placed. And the fact is that particular place, if you called in or text in, they just brought your order out. You didn't even have to leave the car. So yeah, curbside pickup, something that definitely has been gotten into by most successful restaurants that are still open right now. And if you haven't thought about it, you need to think about it, you know, pretty quickly. Of course, delivery is there. That's a big thing. It's been a evolving operational convenience for many, many years, and even more so now. So if you're not doing delivery, you're certainly going to have to think about that. Hopefully, you've all been able to pick up on delivery and the convenience factor that's included there. But yeah, if you haven't, you need to do that. And you don't have to have your own delivery driver, right? You don't have to have your own van or car. You can just use one of the other delivery services that are out there. Of course, I know they charge a little bit more, but you know, people are willing to pay a little bit more for convenience and safety. So you shouldn't feel bad about a customer having to pay a little bit more for delivery. Of course, today people are so caught, those people who are not getting out, like myself and my wife, we don't get out, you know, nearly as much as we used to. Getting out for curbside pickup is actually it's kind of nice. It kind of breaks up the monotony. You get to drive around town and see what everybody else is doing. And the curbside pickup is just as safe as delivery, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, even though we have access to delivery, many times we choose the curbside pickup option because we just like to get out a little bit. And then of course, or reliable drive-through. If you are already set up for drive-through business, well then you're in good hands right now. So you can continue that the drive-through process. I mentioned one business I work with. Yeah, they completely looked at their parking lot situation and redesigned that so they can have a little drive-through action. And the guy told me he'd been thinking about it for years. He just hadn't gotten around to it. So I know why. Being in business, any business, is time consuming. Doesn't leave a whole lot of time for extracurricular, much less thinking about what you might do differently in the operation, especially if the operation is going smoothly as is. But you should always be thinking ahead, thinking about the opportunities that are available. And like this gentleman, he always wanted to put a drive-through in, just never quite got around to it. But the COVID-19 pandemic, and made the decision for him. He was able to pivot to put that drive-through in, and it really helped him out. This next one is a fairly new trend. It's offering kits that people can prepare themselves. We just so happen that my wife and I use a kit service, if you will, from a online market group. And they send us boxes, box full of stuff that we prepare ourselves. But your particular restaurant could also offer kits, things that are very popular. And these might be the things that don't really hold up well if prepared beforehand and transferred in those styrofoam boxes. You might offer these things as a kit so that people can make these things at home. Now, obviously, they can't, they're not going to have a fryer at home, so they're not going to do French fries at home. But they could do other types of things. So this is where your creative juices have to get flowing in something like this. These kits are put together kits that you're going to offer in a box, and you're able to give the directions, put the ingredients in there. And most ingredients, not the salt and the pepper, people, some ingredients people are going to have at home anyway. But these are kits that people can put together themselves and make at home. You will have to be selective. Not everybody's going to have the skill as you have in the kitchen. Not everybody's going to have that experience. Not everybody's going to have the equipment. But you should be able to come up with several kits that you could offer for sale at your store. The secret's going to be in the spices, those kind of things. You prepare packets of spices that people add to whatever they're cooking, and you're going to have to mix those spices in your kitchen. But these kits would be offered as a complement to just other stuff that's already cooked at your restaurant. So offering these kits is another way to expand your services and bring in other types of revenue streams as well, these kits. I put preparing boxes in here too, because boxes are, they're kind of kits, but you might prepare more of the stuff in a box, and you send that out, and the people just have to put it together. But whether it's a partially prepared in a box or a complete kit that people have to make from scratch, this is a opportunity to expand your menu, to expand your offerings, so that you can get a little bit more revenue stream coming into your operation. Another trend is subscriptions. It's a subscription that you sell to your restaurant, and people purchase these on a monthly basis. It could be a yearly basis, but whatever it is, maybe the payments come in once a month for a 1-year subscription. But each subscription, like a subscription to a pharmacy or a subscription to a gym, membership in a gym, it gives your clients, your customer, a certain number of kits maybe, or a certain number of boxes each month for one price. Subscriptions are not new. They've been subscriptions since, since the Industrial Revolution, maybe even before that. The idea behind a subscription, of course, on the business side, is that not everybody is going to use the subscription to the point where you actually lose money. That people, after the initial 2 or 3 first orders, subscription use kind of tails off, and sometimes months will even go by and people forget about that. Oh yeah, we got a subscription, we got to order something. you know, they rush around trying to order something. So subscriptions over the short run for a customer is definitely an advantage for the customer, but on the long run for the business over time, it definitely turns out to be a good value for the business itself. Takes a little bit of creative thinking to realize that a subscription-based meal service would actually be quote unquote profitable. But I think if you gave it some thought, I think you can see that. Again, you can control costs by what you offer. You know, you're not, if you're in the steakhouse business, you don't have to offer filet mignon on your subscription program. So, but you know, you can be selective on that. And the best thing about that, you're selective on that and you're upfront about that. So people don't like the subscription offerings at one time, they don't have to order. They don't even have to get the subscription. So you put out there what you're pretty sure you're going to make a decent profit on, and make sure there's no waste on. Make sure it's something in line with your new streamlined menu, and you should come out all right with a subscription service of some kind. So there are opportunities if you're open right now, allowing you to pivot, allowing you to take a few extra looks at what you're serving, what your staff looks like, what your inventory looks like, and how you're going to deliver that food. And taking advantage of the opportunities hopefully will help you weather the pandemic. So if you're still out there pitching, if you look at this little part of the presentation, you know, sometime tonight, you weren't able to tune in today at noon because you're busy serving lunch. Yeah, there's some opportunities here. So don't think that you're without options. Plenty of options to increase revenue stream in your operation. Again, if you have questions about any of this, you know, you're welcome to send me an email, and my email address will be at the end of the program. All right. What about if you close? Yeah, unfortunately, I'm working with a couple of people. He closed. It was tough. He didn't get the PPP, Payroll Protection Program loan. He didn't get that. And he didn't get that other loan that was out there for a while that the SBA sent out. He didn't get that one either. Yeah, he is applying for a loan that we have though. So my program, the Piedmont Triad Regional Council of Governments, we actually have a COVID-19 program, loan program. It's called the Keep the Lights On. Keep the Lights On loan program, micro loan program, we call it. And yeah, loans are available, you know, from up to $50,000 from that program. If I have time at the end, I'll get on the website and show you. But if not, you're welcome to send me an email, and I'll get the information back to you. But yeah, we have funding to help people. So it's supposed to be for, not supposed to be, but we were hoping it was for people who would need funding, need some help before they close. But we're talking to quite a few people who basically had to close because they didn't get any other funding, and now they're thinking about getting reopened. Now, this is not just all restaurants. I'm working with a wide variety of businesses in this program, but there are a number of restaurants in there as well. Yeah, so if you close, well, you have a few other steps to look like. Some of these steps are going to be similar to what I just talked about, you know, like streamlining your menu for the reopening. But in this case, streamlining your menu for reopening has more to do with your cash flow on hand, your capital that you have on hand, because you might not be able to afford the full inventory complement that you had when you were open full time. You know, you might only be able to afford, 10, 15% of your menu. If that's the case, just make sure it's the best 10 or 15% of your menu. And just don't open with with things that you found over the years didn't add real value to your customer experience. So make sure it's the good things that you're streamlining your menu in, and hopefully those things you'll be able to get at more value as far as the inventory goes. So yeah, so if you close, you got to look at some stuff. What do you have to look at? Well, for one thing, does the health department know you closed? If it was a short closing, you might not have any trouble with the health department. Let's say, sure, go back home. They might not even know you closed. But if you did close for a significant period of time, and significant is definitely a variable word, it's a variable time frame for that. Some people's significant is a couple of weeks. Other people's significance a couple of months. So yeah, every county health department is different. So and the group I work with and the group we're talking with now, we're talking 2, 3, 4 counties, and every health department is a little bit different. Even though the health department is committed to enforcing the state's laws and rules and regulations, each local health department can interpret those laws a little bit differently. So you're not going to get a consistent interpretation from county to county. So does your health department know you closed? If not, you might be able to get back open without too much of a problem. But if you're in a visible area and the health department knows you're closed and you've been closed for a while, you might have to get back in touch with the health department, let them know what's happening. But there are a lot of restaurants out there, and there are very few health department inspectors. So you need to look into that pretty quickly in terms of what are the requirements to get reopened. You might have to get re-inspected. Of course, you can't get re-inspected until your operation gets up and moving. Your health department's not going to give you a buy if he just comes out and looks at you and you're sitting there in an empty restaurant. You don't have any food in the cooler isn't on, the ice machine isn't on. Well, there's nothing really for the health department to inspect. So you really have to get your operation up and running. You have to get it moving again. You got to plug in the ice machine, get your water running in the dishwasher, get the walk-in cooler down to temperature, even if there's nothing in there. So, and all that costs a little bit of money, right? So I'm going to get to money in a little bit, but yeah, if you close, you're looking at spending a little extra money just to get back open. Unfortunately, for most people, the reason they closed because they didn't have any money. If they had money, they wouldn't have closed to begin with. So yeah, it's like a little bit of a catch-22 there. But like I said, we do have a program that I work with. You might be able to get some funding from us to help you get reopened if you happen to have closed because of the pandemic. So yeah, a lot of stuff there with the health department. Got to get your operation up and running so that if you have to be re-inspected, then the health department has something to look at, an operation that's operational and ready to go. Now you don't have to get your inventory in necessarily and stuff like that, but you got to get the lights on and everything running so that the health department can go in there and take a good look at it. Make sure you're ready to reopen. And then again, usually the health department gives a temporary permit. A piece of paper as opposed to that card that has the A on it. That's like your permanent permit to open. But they usually give out a piece of paper that's a temporary permit. And then they try to get back 2, 3, 4 weeks to look at you again as you're actually operating. And that's when you really get your inspection, and that's when you get your grade. Hopefully you all get a grade in the A category, but 90.5 is just as good as a 99.5 as I'm concerned. So yeah, get your operation going if you did close so that the health department can take a look at you again. All right, you should also take a look at some of what we talked about. You should always be looking at what demand has changed. What are the current demands and trends during this COVID-19? So you might be thinking ahead, thinking things are going to start looking up by the end of the year. And you might think, well, if I can get a loan, if I can get some more capital in here, maybe I can open this thing. Well, just don't open the way you were before. I've already talked about that. Just don't open the same way you were running before. You need to open under the current trends that are going on right now, current demands. What are some of those? Well, we talked about some of those just earlier. We're talking about curbside pickup, delivery, drive-through, offering kits. Talking about that kind of stuff. I mean, just don't open the way you were before. This is an opportunity to put something new into place. At the very least, you should be delivering. At the very least, your delivery is a big thing. It's always been a big thing in restaurants, but not all restaurants, deliver. So you definitely want to look at the current demands. The demands are for safety, more convenience, delivery, and so forth. So make sure when you open those doors, you're opening them and offering something new, something more that's going to meet the current demand of the industry. And you can look at trends. Things have changed. Things have been changing. Healthy food choices are a lot bigger today than they were a year ago. And they were bigger a year ago than they were the year before that. And they're going to be bigger next year than they are now. So people are looking to eat healthier and so forth and so on. So as you're looking at that new menu, as you're looking at your new inventory, be creative. Give yourself an opportunity to expand your menu. And every menu can expand. I don't care what particular cuisine you're serving, whether it's Asian, Latino, all American, French, Italian. I don't care what. I don't care what your menu is going. There's always room for creative development for healthy choice items on your menu. So take advantage of this now. You have some opportunity. Maybe you have some time as you gear up to get back open. So look at that menu more critically. So not only is it streamlining, but you're taking a look at more trends that are in the restaurant industry now and what you can bring to the marketplace. Excuse me. And can you prep up? Right now, if you're open and running, you have a lot of stuff that was prepped the day before or even the day before that. But when you get ready to open, you got to prep everything immediately. So you got to give yourself a couple of days to prep up. Unfortunately, that's going to take some staff. If you're the head cook, you might be able to do it yourself. As long as you got your refrigeration up and running, then you can start prepping up. Don't leave it for the morning you open. Make sure you prep up well in advance so that when the orders start coming in, you're ready to put them together and you're ready to get those things delivered. Think about the need for reduced seating. Yeah, it's unfortunately the reopening of a restaurant industry has taken phases. Right now it might be at 50%. So you're not going to have every seat full. You're not going to have every seat full in your place. So that has a lot to do with staff. If you don't have every seat full, you might not need as much staff as you had beforehand. You might not need as much inventory. So again, you're really called upon to manage your operation so that you can take advantage of what's currently happening, and reduce seating is certainly a part of the process. Staff accordingly, as I talked about before. I don't want to have too many people on hand. Now, I'm not going to say if you're 50% down in seats, you'll be 50% down in staff, but it could be pretty close to that. Could be pretty close to that, especially if you're in a position to work more hours to reduce staff expense. You might be able to reduce your staff, accordingly to what's available as far as seating goes. Of course, if you have outdoor seating, take advantage of it. If you didn't have outdoor seating, you need to start thinking about it. A lot of places don't have that opportunity. They're in a strip mall, a strip center someplace where there's not a whole lot of sidewalk, and it just, unfortunately, you're in a more difficult location than other people. But if you have an opportunity for outdoor seating, you certainly need to take advantage of that. All this leads to your marketing. You can't forget about your marketing in this process. Even with the pandemic, you're going to have to get the message out. If you close, how are people going to know you're open if you close? So hopefully you have fairly good, robust social media presence before you close. So if you haven't been maintaining that, you need to get on there pretty quickly. Let everybody know you're about to reopen. You can say you're about to reopen, even though it might take you a month. But you need to get on there and let people know so they don't forget about you. If you haven't had a fairly extensive social media presence before you close, well, you need to start developing that before you get open. Otherwise, how are people going to know you're open? No one's going to know you're open. I mean, you can call a couple of friends and tell them you're open, but how far is that going to go? So you need to get back on your social media, get that message out there that yes, in fact, you're going to be reopening. You're thinking about reopening, and give them a timeline. No one's going to get real mad at you if you don't hit your timeline. These are difficult times for businesses, but give them some hope that you're going to be open and that people are going to be able to find you open and get some of those great dishes that you've been preparing. So get reopened. And you could possibly get open for delivery service, get open for curbside pickup. If you have a drive-through, get open for your drive-through even before you get the inside dining open, which will save you an inventory and staff as well. So if anyone's been to a Chick-fil-A restaurant here the last few months, they don't have their inside dining open, but there must be 50 cars waiting every day to get to that pickup window, so drive-through window. So there's an opportunity there. So the marketing the marketing should include this fact that you're getting reopened And you might even throw out some of the things that you're going to be doing with this reopening. Maybe some of the new menu items you're going to have, maybe some of those kits we talked about earlier, and so forth and so on. So even though it's something I do not consistently advise, it's possible to talk about pricing on a reopening message. But you have to be careful about pricing, because pricing sometimes is more difficult to lower prices than people imagine. But getting the message out. So as you redevelop your reopening plan, as you put into place other things you want to do, as you looked at your streamlined menu, then you need to pull from all that, what's your new key message going to be in your advertising. That's advertising, whether it goes out in social media. That's a message that goes out in your print material. That might be a message that opens up on your website when people first go to your website. It might be the message that goes out on Instagram. Whatever that message is, it's going to be something new and unique and innovative that you're opening up with. So make sure that's a real benefit to your customers, and that's going to be your new marketing message. As far as the plan goes, whatever was working for you before is probably where you're going to start. I would think the plan, the outlets for your message probably has not changed that much from before COVID and after COVID, or before close and reopening. But whatever the message is, plan to get started with a fresh message that highlights the changes you have made into your operation and the excitement you have at reopening after you've been closed for a while. Yes, working capital. How much working capital will you need? Most definitely, if you already closed and that operation was the basis of your income, you're going to have to come up with some working capital someplace. So hopefully you have a significant other that's been working. You might have a little savings set aside, or you might have to go to a loan program of some sort, one of foundation agencies or government agencies. But you're going to need a little working capital to get reopened. There's all that new inventory you got to purchase. If you got to make changes in your operation, that's going to cost you some money as well. You're going to have to hire back some staff, maybe not as much as you had before, but however many you hire back, they're going to want to get paid. So so how are you going to handle this reopening if you closed already? If you close and income was scarce when you closed, it's probably going to be just as scarce now. So you're going to have to make some decisions. Unfortunately, a lot of businesses are just not going to have the capital to reopen. That's just the way it is. Just not going to have the capital to reopen, unfortunately. But if you're lucky enough to have some resources available to you, if you look very, very strategically at your menu and your staffing, you might be able to squeak out a budget that'll allow you to reopen with minimal cash flow needs on a month-to-month basis until you have an opportunity to start bringing in some consistent regular sales. So working capital, unfortunately, you're going to need some money. If you're already closed, you're going to need some money to keep going, to get reopened. If you're open, you're going to need some money to keep going. So, working capital in a restaurant business is a necessity, as we all know. So let's just recap some of the things that's changed or need to be changed. So health and safety, obviously. So, and that might be part of your messaging even. What are you doing to help limit the risk of people contracting the COVID-19 in your operation? People are looking at health and safety very critically right now. So they're just not going to go anywhere. I have to admit, my wife and I have yet to go in and sit down at a restaurant. And we've gotten a lot of takeout, drive through a lot of restaurants, a lot of curbside pickup, but we haven't taken the plunge and actually sat down in a restaurant yet. So we're still a little worried about health and safety. So that's going to be out there. So make sure you're doing everything you can as you continue to stay open, or if you reopen, make sure you do everything you can to convince people you're that their health and safety is first in your operation. Demand. Yeah, demand has changed. So, we talked about that already. So people are demanding other convenient services. So whether it's curbside delivery or drive-through, demands have changed. So be prepared for that if you're going to try to get reopened. Good news, bad news, probably staffing has changed too. Hopefully staffing's gone down. if you're not operating at 100% capacity, well, you don't need everybody like you used to have. So you need to look critically at that. What did your kitchen staff look like before, and what can you get by with now? Needless to say, the owner of a business is going to find themselves back on the line cooking. If you spent the last 3, 4, 5 years, working yourself off the line so you don't have to sweat over the grill anymore, well, guess what? You're going to find yourself back on the line now. That's the only way to reduce staffing requirements to the point where you can get by on reduced revenue. So be ready for that. Who knows? Maybe you can get Uncle Joe or Aunt Alice to join you on the line and really cut back on your staffing. We mentioned this already. Menus have changed. So, this is an opportunity again. I said, throw out those things that weren't selling very good anyway, and stick with the things that are only your best sellers. Be creative. Come up with some new stuff, and and your customers will understand that. And remember about marketing, though. If you come up with a brand new menu and no one knows about it, it's not going to help you very much. So be prepared for marketing. You got to spend money on marketing. You got to spend time on marketing. Now, so that's going to change. Parts of your operation are actually going to change, whether that's reduced seating or you have to hire a driver for your van or whatever it is, but your operation will change too. So did you change with it? Can you change with it? You're not going to be an old fogey and not change. You're going to have to change. You're going to have to pivot to the new realities of what we had. So what if you're not open yet? What if you're brand new? What if you're just thinking about it? Well, as I said, I've got businesses right now that are thinking about it, taking advantage of it. There are new demands out there and people are saying, hey, I can provide that service. I can provide that dish. I can do that. And you take the new demands in consideration as you design your new operation. Whatever you do, if at all possible, you don't open a brand new business without a drive-through window. That seems to be the major thing right now. Now, if you're in fine dining, all right, you might not have your drive-through window. But even fine dining places will have curbside pickup of some sort or delivery. So be prepared. Be prepared for the new demands. And whatever among the new demands you encounter, see if you can meet those new demands with your new restaurant business. There's going to be new menus out there. So this is an opportunity to be creative with your menu. Make sure you're looking for the newest demands in cuisine. Make sure you have them on your new menu. New services come along with all that. We already talked about that. So make sure you're taking advantage of providing the services that are in the greatest demand right now. New operations. Different things are going to be happening in your kitchen that maybe you hadn't contemplated before. But if they're good things that have some long shelf life, as so to speak, you want to include them in your new operations. I think that we're finding out now, unfortunately, one man's bad luck is another man's good luck. So restaurant locations that unfortunately are closed and closed for good, well, that's an opportunity for somebody else. Anybody that started a restaurant knows a big part of the startup costs in opening a restaurant is the physical structure itself, the plumbing, the electrical, the HVAC, all that stuff is very expensive to install brand new in a vanilla box, an empty vanilla box. But if that stuff is already in place, because the restaurant that was there beforehand had to have all that stuff, unfortunately, if that restaurant now has to close, well, that stuff is still in place. You really have a real opportunity here to open a new place and move into something like that. I think moving into a place that's already set up because it's been a restaurant before can quite conceivably reduce your startup cost by certainly now with restaurants unfortunately closing, there are going to be opportunities out there for you to get into a new location that's already set up with a restaurant. Now, you're going to have to be flexible in terms of utilizing what's already in place. You know, if just because they don't have the ice machine where you thought the ice machine should be, you know, you're going to have to go where the ice machine was, because that's where the drain is and that's where the electrical is. So you're going to have to be flexible in terms of taking over an operation that's already laid out. You might be able to make a few cosmetic changes and that kind of stuff, but usually, you know, the heavy stuff, the electrical, the plumbing, mechanical, that kind of stuff, you're going to have to take as is, but it's okay. If that place was semi-successful during its years of operation, the operational layout probably worked for them. So you can make it work for you. And the big savings there is in that construction cost. Seriously, you can reduce your construction costs up to 75% by moving into a spot that was once an operating restaurant before they closed. And you're going to have more staffing options. You know, unfortunately, again, if a restaurant closed, there's a lot of people out there looking for work. They have a lot of experience. So it might be a lot easier to attract experienced professional restaurant workers to come to your new operation. So if you're new, you've got a lot to look forward to. There'll be less competition. Why? Well, the COVID-19 going to have an impact on the competitive marketplace out there. So you might find yourself with less competition. But you will need working capital to get it done. That you'll need probably less working capital. I should have changed that. Should be less working capital. Yeah, you're going to need less working capital to get the project open, because I said a lot of the stuff's already going to be in place. So if you're new to the restaurant world, if you're thinking about opening a restaurant brand new, you really have an opportunity right now to look forward to new operations, better locations, better staffing opportunities, less competition, and less working capital, less startup capital needed to get your new operation open. So hopefully that covered it, whether it's the you're open and struggling right now, you close and going to try to get back open, or whether you're brand new to the industry. If you are brand new to the industry, welcome. It's a great industry to be in. So going to open it up for questions right now. You can see down at the bottom of the thank you, we have my email address, businessplanforstartup@gmail.com. I also have my website, businessplanforstartup.com. And you can contact me through either of those outlets, and I'll be happy to respond to any questions you might have had on today's seminar. Also, since this is recorded, and I imagine some of the restaurant people will be tuning in after hours, just send me an email if you have any questions. Diane, we have anything out there further?
I do not have any chat box questions, but I am sure there will be some, like you said, after folks watch it. So,
great. Well, here's our sponsors. Everybody out there, hopefully you got something out of today's presentation. But again, if you send us an email or send one of these fine people here an email, I'm sure we can get back to you with some useful information.
thank you so much, Ruben. I'm really looking forward to sharing this with folks, and we'll be back next week, right, to continue our COVID series.